you remember what it was like in the year 2000. You and I had just finished high school, and or in fact, probably we were on the verge of finishing high school. We were on the threshold of adulthood, of a happy
25 years ago,
youthful life, a quarter of a century ago. And it was an exciting time, new millennium, pre 9/11. It was that kind of sweet spot in human history, coming out of the slow and steady 90s. And it was all capped off, it seemed, by the arrival of a wonderful film that was called Meet the Parents. And it was a typical kind of it arrived in a time when Ben Stiller had a career that was based in large part on gross out comedies, where he got his pee stuck in his zipper, and maybe he got poo or vomit or semen on his clothing, that kind of thing that made people laugh in the 2000s and the late 90s. And Meet the Parents probably fit into that category to an extent. It starred him as a character called Gaylord Fokker, which of course is a sort of deliberately funny and puerile name, who was a nurse, a male nurse, also in those days a source of hijinks and comedy. And he's got a girlfriend who I think he's intending to marry, and I can't even remember who that was. Oh shit, that was played by Terry Polo, and I don't hear that name too much anymore. But anyway, Terry was his girlfriend / fiance, and of course they went to, as the name of the film would suggest, meet the parents, meet Terry Polo's parents, who were played by Blythe Danner and one and only Bobby De Niro. And they were basically the whole premise of the film was basically that Gaylord Fokker was trying to ingratiate himself with his fiance's parents. The dad was a kind of highly paranoid former FBI agent, I think, who turned out to be surveilling Gaylord. And then there was the kind of ex-boyfriend played by Owen Wilson, who was idealized by Terry Polo's parents.
I remember this now.
And at one point, and like Gaylord sort of gets himself into various incredibly socially awkward situations and ends up ruining his reputation with the family. But then somehow it all works out for the best after he's killed half of them and burned their house down or whatever. They just say, he's just a well-meaning guy. And that was that, right? Or so we thought. Then in 2004, you had Meet the Fockers. I won't go through this blow by blow because otherwise we'll be here for hours. But Meet the Fockers was about obviously introducing parents of the Fockers to the parents of Terry Polo, the Polos. I don't know what their name was in the first movie, but that film was 2004. Again, it kind of everyone reprised their roles. Ben Stiller, Terry Polo, Jack Burns, played by De Niro, and Dina, played by Blythe Danner. And I think it had Bette Midler in it.
Was it Barbara Streisand? Barbara Streisand was one of the parents.
Get them mixed up. Yeah, it was Dustin Hoffman and Barbara Streisand, not Bette Midler. That's 2004. Then 6 years passed. So now we're 10 years past the original Meet the Parents. It's a different era. It's post 9/11. It's Obama. It's Bush has been and gone. The war on terror has kind of subsided. Little Fockers comes out. Again, Stiller and De Niro are on board. But I think some new people, Hoffman and Streisand, rejoin the cast. So that's where it was left until 2024 or thereabouts. And I think Robert De Niro is now about 104 years old, and Ben Stiller's about 65, and they both are looking for roles. They both enjoyed working together. Ben Stiller, it must be said, his career has slowed down a bit. I don't think he's kind of been the leading man in too many films in the last decade. And so 2024, it was reported that, December 2024, reported that Stiller, De Niro, Danner, and Polo were in early talks to star in a new Meet the Parents film. And May 30th this year, it was announced that the film would be released, so just a couple of days ago, on November 25th, 2026. And that friend of the show, Ariana Grande, or as I like to call her, Ariana Venti, will also star in the she'll be in the lineup. And it's going to be directed and written by John Hamburg, who has spent the last quarter century of his life writing these films. It's basically his life's work. He spent his whole adult life meeting parents and Fockers and little Fockers. And now he's going to do another one. And I think he's in the director's chair. Maybe that didn't happen initially, but he's moved up because everyone else has died or become extremely bored with the idea. And it made me, it's part of a kind of a couple of things that have gone on in the film world, which I thought we might talk about today, that I think are interesting because, you know, a couple of years ago we were talking about the kind of barrage, talking critically on the show about the barrage of sequels and reboots and whatever. And it seems to me that we must be there must be a point where we get to past kind of peak reboot. And I thought we were getting there. But these films keep coming, partly because the ideas for the films, you know, they might have been a product of that peak reboot period, but the films take a while to get.
That's right. That's what I've
get
heard.
in train. And so by the time this comes out, the end of next year, it will be the end of 26 years after the first Meet the Parents film. But many of the same people will return. And I just think it's interesting and important to reflect on how profoundly odd that is. I mean, if you were an English teacher at a primary school and you had a kid go through the school for year 3 to year 12, and every time that whole period, every time you asked him to do a creative writing essay, he'd write a story about the Fockers. By the time he got to like year 11, you'd be going, this kid is like, something's wrong. Why does this family keep coming up? Something's fucked in his mind. He's disturbed because he can't think of any ideas except for returning to this family and their weird little universe. But nobody says that about John Hamburg. And I think maybe they should because it's incredible to me that it just keeps going. And it's also not an idea that had sort of huge legs to begin with. It's not like The Godfather or something. It's like basically a kind of caper comedy from 2000 that just keeps running. Al, I know you are a fan of the first 3 films and maybe you have a strong opinion about
I'm just trying to remember. I think I've seen the first 2, I think.
Yeah,
I remember the Streisand Dustin Hoffman marriage, I believe. They were a couple, weren't they? They were Ben Stiller.
Yeah.
They're the Fockers, is that right? That's
they're
Ben
the
Stiller's
Fockers.
parents.
And they're kind of in contrast to
hippie.
The Terry Polo family. They're kind of hippie, free-spirited, you know, very permissive.
Yeah.
And so it's about the kind of odd coupling of, you know, uptight Jack, played by Robert De Niro, who just wants to carpet bomb the global South, and Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah.
Who
and I remember, for some reason, I just remember that the hippie Streisand and Dustin Hoffman, they were saying they didn't want to waste water, or there was some sort of issue with their toilet. So when Robert De Niro's and his wife came to visit or whatever, Dustin Hoffman had to give them the toilet instructions, and he used the classic phrase, if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down.
Mm-hmm.
That's my memory of that entire franchise.
There's probably a scene where the toilet explodes and Robert De Niro gets poo in his hair or something. That's classic Meet the Parents. I remember there was a scene in the first one where Gaylord is discussing milking a cat. And I don't know why. I don't know how he gets himself into that conversational cul-de-sac, but that became like a trope associated with the film. But, what's going on? I mean, why can't that, who is watching this film? Are they relying on, I don't really get the idea, because I think, well, nobody was that passionate about the original films, are they? Like, if you met someone and they said, my favorite film is Meet the Parents, you'd be like, what?
Do you know what
yet they kind of go, we'll keep this idea alive for 26 years.
Is it Meet the Fockers official trailer? That's the 2004 one. Do you know, is it just going to be a cinema? Is it just going to be a cinema? Is it going to be a cinema release? Is it going to be a Netflix? It's not a Netflix specific.
Yeah,
thing.
Good question. I think it's made by Universal Pictures, and
then
Deadline has reported in recent days that plot details are still being kind of kept in the cone because, of course, there's an endless flurry of speculation about what the upcoming Meet the Parents plotline is going to be. But we know that Ariana Piccolo Grande is going to join the original cast. After, I think they were waiting to see, is she Oscar material? And she won an Oscar for Wicked, or she got nominated, and they thought, well, that'll do. Details are being kept under wraps, according to a report from last Saturday in The Guardian. But according to the Hollywood Reporter, Grande will play a ball-busting woman who is engaged to the son of Stiller's character. So there you go. It's passed to a full generational shift.
Yeah.
And she's been offered many films since Wicked, but was determined to find a comedy. So she did that. She's always interested in expanding. No word yet on whether Cynthia Erivo will also be involved in the project. I really want that to happen, because I just need them both to kind of back off from their artistic pretensions that they constructed during the press tour of Wicked, which I think would be ably managed if they both were like, yeah, look, we're just in it for the money. So now we're going to go from the Witch musical to jumping on the Fockers gravy train.
I think that
on the good ship Fockers.
Ben Stiller's son, who's with Ariana leaves him for Cynthia Erivo. That's going to be so hot. Right. That's pure Hollywood. That's pure Hollywood right there.
Absolutely. Ben Stiller is now the same age, says one of the producers, Jane Rosenthal, that Bob was when we did the first one, and his kids have grown up and they have come home to meet the parents. So, I mean, that just means, well, we're not, we could be seeing, we could be seeing these films for another 100 years. It could be
59, Ben Stiller.
There you go. Yeah. So his Gaylord Fokker Jr. is going to marry going to marry Ariana Grande. So that's one. I don't know. Do you have any ideas about how these films, who's going, like, why doesn't the pitch go like this? Somebody says, oh, I've written a new Meet the Parents film, or I've got an idea for a new Meet the Parents film. And they go, oh yeah, I think I remember that movie. Why would you make a new one?
Well, I think
did people like it?
Yeah, I think the general approach from the producers must be, first things first. Any franchise, it's this weird psychological thing that happens with humans where, even though we might think this is not something that I care about, so long as it's something that people know, even if it's a familiar name. Like if you just hear the word, like it's very deliberate that the word Fockers is in the title of the film. They wouldn't do something like The Funny Family. And then everybody goes, oh, what's that? And they go, oh, it's the new Meet the Fockers. And they'd go, oh, I wish it had Fockers in the title, because then I wouldn't have had to, then I would have gone and seen it. So you have to have Fockers in the title, because of our silly brains that just crave familiarity because it's safe.
It's true. Because people go, it's such a dangerous risk for me to see a film that I can't understand.
Yeah, or I don't want to go and see a film. Maybe something's going to happen in that film that's going to really upset me. But I know that if I'm surrounded by the warmth of the Fockers, and so it needs to have. So what's the next one called again?
Well, I think at the moment it's just it doesn't have a title. Yeah, it's just being called. It's just being called Meet the Parents 4. I think.
All these motherfuckers.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
so we had Meet the Fockers, Little Fockers.
Yeah. What's very interesting is that obviously what happened after the first film was successful, Meet the Parents, and then they went, oh, everybody remembers Fockers because it was a funny, silly name that we came up with. We didn't really think much of it at the time. It was just a little funny in joke in the film, and then everyone in the producer's room has gone, oh, well, that's a very distinct surname that nobody really has. So we can use that as the title of the next film. And because if it was like Meet the Parents 2, I'd be scratching my head going, wait, is that Parent Trap? Is that other parent? True. Is that other films with parent in the title? And then if you go Fockers, you go, oh, it's gonna be that film again. Yeah. So you need to have something that everybody goes
getting his dick caught in his pants.
Yeah. Well, you have the word Fockers in the title, and then people instantly know. It's funny. All you need is that one word, and people go, okay, this is going to be Ben Stiller. This is going to be Robert De Niro. This is going to be Dustin Hoffman. This is going to be funny family hijinks. And all you need is that one silly little word to just enter your mind. Yeah. And of course, it's only going to work on older generations. So pretty much.
Well, it'll work on people our age. Right?
Yes, you're looking at geriatric millennials.
Exactly. We came of age exactly. I turned 18 the year of the Meet the Parents, and I wasn't allowed to watch it until on my 18th birthday, my dad gave me a beer and a DVD of Meet the Parents.
It said, son, I'm going to teach you about the birds and the bees with Meet the Parents. And you just with your little fingers together going,
Dad? What's a gay
He did it all in one.
He said, just shut up and watch.
What's a gay law? He said, well, certainly that's fucking nothing you have to worry about, son. Don't you bloody be worried about that. And then
he taught you want a fucking rope over your head, don't ask me questions about that.
And then he said, we're going to get all the parenting in one night. And then he taught you how to shave, and he taught you about birds and bees. And he taught you about Meet the Fockers, and he taught you about, let me tell you about John, a woman is a lot like a beer. You just can't have one. You got to have another woman. So it's aimed at us. It's aimed at geriatric millennials. It's not going to be the kids that were going to see the Minecraft movie. Although although the strategy is the same. Again, Minecraft. Kids didn't need to know anything about what was going to happen, who was in that. You just, there's a Minecraft movie. I'm going to see the Minecraft movie.
It's true. And so there was that. And I thought, that's interesting that, I thought we were past peak sequel, as I said, but then I've realized that can't be right if people are willing to do intergenerational sequel making. I mean, they're just gonna. There's no end to it. And then I saw, the news that other friend of the show, Will Smith, perhaps one of the original and best friends of the show, is also making a film set to come out, I believe, next year, which is a sequel to this 2007 classic I Am Legend.
Right.
Which again,
is a zombie film.
It's a zombie film. So he played a scientist called Robert Neville, and he was kind of living alone, trying to find a cure to this virus that was causing human beings to turn into zombies. Classic sort of plot based on a book, I think, or a novella or something. And the interesting thing about that is, it came out in 2007, so a long time ago, and so almost 20 years ago. And there's been nothing since then. Unlike the Fockers, there hasn't been a franchise. And part of the reason there hasn't been a franchise is because at the end of I Am Legend, Will Smith's character is dead. And so the idea that Will Smith would star in a sequel to I Am Legend, and they said it's not a prequel, it is a sequel. And everyone said, but hang on, if I remember correctly, and I'm not sure that I do because it was an unremarkable film from 18 years ago, but if I do, at the end, he had the vial of zombie cure in his possession. Right. He gave it to someone else. He threw a grenade at the zombies to keep them away from that someone else. The grenade killed them, and it also killed him. So he sacrificed his life so that humanity could be free of the zombies disease. And that was why it was called I Am Legend rather than I Am a Continuing Corporeal Will Smith. Because by the end of the film, he was a legend. And so what they've done is said, well, that's true, but if you watch the DVD of the film, specifically if you go to the DVD extras, there is buried in those extras an alternate ending that we briefly considered where he doesn't die and he makes it out and goes to this new settlement. And so the sequel to the film it's going to have Will Smith. It's going to be post-date the original film, and it's going to be based on the alternate ending that was in the DVD extras. And it was like, wow, that's pretty ridiculous. Like
it's a film based on DVD commentary.
Yeah, exactly. At one point in the commentary, Will Smith said, "Imagine if my characters survived." So we took our inspiration from that. Basically, is what they're doing. And so they're just pretending that the original canonical version of the film was incorrect, which is such a weird idea. And again, just makes me go, man, you guys will really do anything except just come up with a new story, won't you? So
sorry, John, if I understand correctly, so you go and see the sequel to I Am Legend, and you have to just assume that the first movie was sort of like a mistake, or you go, actually it was false, or you go, that's so hilariously like trying to have your cake and eat it too, because what they're trying to do is it's exactly what I was saying. They're trying to trade off the familiarity of the first one, and yet at the same time they are saying, but they're not putting any effort into connecting the two, or very little effort into connecting the two worlds. It's like they're just going, look, we want you to remember this, but we'd also like you to please, so we can make money and have Will in it again, we'd like you to ignore that he died and just right. This is a new one.
So the first film was written, or it was kind of adapted, I think, again from this pre-written story, but the screenplay was written by this guy called Akiva Goldsman. And in a recent interview, Will Smith said, what we were going to do was a prequel. And then Akiva Goldsman was like, but wait, what if we make a new version from the alternate ending where your character is still alive and Michael B. Jordan's character currently is the head of a new settlement, new actor Michael B. Jordan, who is significantly younger, I guess. Like he would have he wasn't on anyone's radar when the first I Am Legend came out. He was barely 20 years old. And now it'll be him and Will pretending that the end of the first film was an error and that Will's fine. It's so odd. It's like, just
are they going to do?
Surely that's like, it's so lazy. Like, make a prequel. But I mean,
this speaks to the power of the familiarity thing, and the like. There would have been a conversation when they said, "Oh, well." Like there probably just wouldn't have been a conversation. Somebody would have been like, "Should we put Will in a new action film?" And the producers would have gone like, "Absolutely not. We have to get him into something that exists already to get a familiarity warmth in people's synapses firing, and then somebody's gone. We should do another I Am Legend.
We need to connect him to a story that predates his descent into polyamory and madness.
That's probably true.
Slapping.
Does he have? Let's have a look at Will's IMDb. Like, what's he got? Did you see his terrible rap? Maybe we could bring that up.
Yeah,
just for it's not particularly relevant, but it's pretty funny.
No, I mean it is worth mentioning.
It's the comeback. I'm a number one. Why don't we just bring that up while we look him?
I've been enjoying his Instagram, which is partly how I learned about. I think it might be how I learned about this new I Am Legend film. Yeah, and he does these kind of real. It's very kind of. It seems like he might be having a direct role in running his own Instagram. And he does things which are kind of a bit Twitter-esque, like he will respond to people's just kind of nobodies. He'll respond to their comments in the comments. Like saying, yeah, you know me, it's Big Willie style. And everyone goes, sorry, I'm too young to understand what that means.
Hey guys, get ready for the Willennium.
That's right.
W2K, the Millennium's coming up.
Yeah.
Don't forget to have your computers checked for the W2K Millennium bug.
For the Fresh Prince virus. They should reboot Fresh Prince. I'd watch that. I think they tried that actually, but anyway,
Yazzie Yef and the Frosh Prawns.
The Yazzie Yef and the Frosh Prawns. So yeah, here he is, and he kind of alternates between interviews where he's, saying things like, "I've learned so much. I'm so humbled.
Yeah,
and I've grown so much from being cucked and slapping people."
and being a river to my people.
Being a river to my people. Exactly.
What was always quite funny about that is he was never particularly outspoken about black issues.
No.
And then suddenly as soon as you hit somebody, another black man, mind you.
True.
And then he's like, I'm a river to my people. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You don't have any involvement in that.
You're a pretty
deliberately
slappy
say
river.
that.
Yeah, exactly. You haven't actually been a part of these discussions. You've been mostly just around a table obsessing about your own family, who are kind of insanely privileged and self-obsessed. So that's not a river. That's more of I've been an embarrassment to my people, perhaps.
Yeah,
you've been a very cringy river.
So that was I Am Legend. I will just have a look what he's got coming up. I'm kind of interested that he got. Maybe that's all he could get. Maybe they said to him, "Look, this is probably not going to do great because it doesn't make any sense, but we're going to do I Am Legend 2. That's what you get now because of what you did. Because of what you did.
That's right.
What you get.
You have to do I Am Legend 2 and it's going to bomb and you're going to have to just wear it because of what you did." And what if it wins an Oscar? Then will they rescind his Oscar ban? I wonder. If it did insanely well, would the Academy be like, "You won, but you can't. You have to come. You have to appear on Video Link because we're worried you're going to come and start hitting people."
This is an interesting crossover, John, because you mentioned this to me before. Apparently, he's one of the producers of the 2018 to 2025. I didn't know it started back then. 2018 to 2025 Cobra Kai TV series, which is the Karate Kid TV series that was on Netflix, and he was the executive producer.
There you go. What does that mean? That he gave it some money and encouraged other people to give it money? Or perhaps he was more involved?
Executive producer, I think, means you help bring the whole thing together. I don't necessarily think it means that he has to have brought money. He might have helped sort of like collect money from other people, but he would have been one of the ones going, let me work to get this actor in. Let me, he would have been in meetings where they decided, who should be in this?
Yeah.
Where should the story go? A kind of guide, I think, really bringing people together, like a Quincy Jones in the studio, being a river to his people. And then, of course, he was in Bad Boys Ride or Die 2024.
Oh, yes, of course.
Is it? Yeah.
He's really, he's not breaking much fresh ground. And then, of course, that ties in well with the other thing I wanted to comment on. One of the other movies I wanted to comment on, which is Karate Kid Legends. And
is this yes, let me have a look at this. Is this a movie, or I wasn't even sure? I've seen the posters around Berlin, and I sent you the picture and I sent you the picture with the caption that said, "This is exactly what they would have put, like if Back to the Future 2 was made today, and Marty McFly was wide-eyed walking through Hill Valley and trying to understand exactly where he was, and and he'd be stumbling around and looking around, and then there would be a big, huge poster that said Karate Kid 9, Ralph Macchio,
with a kind of
Ralph Macchio in the old folks' home."
Exactly.
And that's exactly what you're seeing on the posters. You're seeing,
it is.
Although mind you, are very well aged. He's aged incredibly well.
He's always had
Ralph Macchio.
He's always had a real baby face, almost to the point where I'm not sure if he has like some sort of condition.
Well, it looks
he looks like a boy.
This is kind of what we were talking about. This is what we were talking about last week, where there's something. It's fine to be like, oh, this person looks 10 years younger, or this person looks 10 years older. But once you start getting like 15, 20, 30 years younger or older, something starts happening where you go, this is weird. I don't really like this. And Ralph Macchio has a bit of that because he is literally an old man. He's, I think, 62 or 63 now.
Yeah.
But he obviously dyes his hair, which is fine. And he's kept most of his hair. I don't know if he's had transplants, but it looks like he's had his natural hair he's so old that he couldn't have been getting that new hair transplant technology his entire career. So I think he's kept a lot of his regular hair.
Yeah.
And now he just sort of looks,
he still looks like a
little
boy.
bit.
He looks like a wrinkled boy, basically.
That's the thing. The wrinkled boy.
That makes it even more like something you would have seen in Back to the Future 2, because it's like you've just put an age filter on 80s Ralph Macchio. And not only that, but the other person who I love that's in, in fact, look at this list of people. It has Jackie Chan as well.
Jackie Chan.
Who is in his 70s now, 71. So he's got no business being in a Karate Kid film. He should just relax. And Joshua Jackson, everyone's favorite from Dawson's Creek, Name of Pacey.
He's in it.
He's in it. And it's got 59% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So it is actually, it's come out, and it's, as of June 3rd, it has grossed $24 million in the United States and $26 million elsewhere. So it's made $50 million from a budget of $45 million. Modest gains, basically.
Yeah.
Broke even. Should have just sat on their money and not made it. And I'm not sure why they did make it. Again, I just think, like, who is the person who is so, I guess people just will go to something because they go, I got nothing to do. And I don't want to have to think about, I don't have to read a précis. This is a whole paragraph, and it's got ideas that I haven't encountered before. I'll rather just go, Karate Kid, I remember that from like childhood. I'll just watch that.
And they can probably get a new generation because the kids will have seen the thing that was on Netflix. So that's true. This is how you play your hand cleverly. Is you go, okay, Karate Kid, strong franchise, 80s, and then you just leave it until all those people are old and have their own kids, and then you go, okay, cool. Now also let's do a Netflix series, so that like all the like our generation who watch Karate Kid as kids, who've had kids, we go, oh kids, you know what we're all going to watch as a family? Karate Kid on Cobra Kai on Netflix. And then the kids go, all right, Dad. And then you basically indoctrinate the kids into the Karate Kid universe.
Yeah, that's true.
And then you wait 5 or 6 years until they've got pocket money. And then they go, oh, I remember Karate Kid from Netflix with Dad. And then they go and see it. Whereas if you just said, hey, have you seen the new Ralph Macchio drama down at the...
That's true.
There's a really touching like Second World War movie original screenplay. Ralph Macchio plays an aged boy in a Jewish ghetto.
There's a new like a surrealist intellectual film which is written by Spike Jonze and Andy Kaufman, and it stars Ralph Macchio. It's 4.5 hours.
I want to say I love you, Ralph. I love what you got going on, but this is a weird look. the like the haircut and the hoodies and stuff. Like I'm just gonna send you this, John. Actually, we'll bring it up on the screen. He won't. I just wish that he would be an old man, because like just a little bit, because the fact that he's going like, nah, I'm gonna still look like karate. I'm gonna style myself like Karate Kid. Yeah, it makes him. He ends up looking like this, John. And you just go. I'll see if. Can you see? And he just kind of looks like a man in his.
Like a kid who's.
He looks like a man in his like late 30s, early 40s who just smokes cigarettes his whole like since he was 2. That's what's happened. He's gone. That's the Macchio look.
Like a haggard 40-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah, because of the haircut and because of the dyed hair and because he's kept all of his hair and because he's wearing a Blue Boys hoodie. It's just an interesting look.
He's got a kind of page boy haircut and like a little 80s style crew necky thing. But
hang on. Let me just. How do I stop sharing screen? There we go. Yes,
the rest of the episode with a picture of Ralph Macchio between us. Yeah, there you go. And obviously they're getting a new set of people on board. People like Ariana Grande saying to them, "Look, you need to be a river to your people now, and sell
the Italian American community.
Sell the exactly, and young people sell the idea of Fockers to the new generation and make them understand why Fockers, why Meet the Parents 4, Grand Fockers, it's going to be called, is so great. Grand Fockers is.
So that's exactly what that's the producers' discussion, John, is they go, okay, who's going to be the cast and why? And then somebody who's a producer goes, well, it's a pretty dusty old cast. It is actually quite clever from a marketing perspective because they've essentially got 3 generations in the film. So you can get people that loved Taxi Driver. You can get people that loved The Graduate. You can get people that loved the Cable Guy. Remember Ben Stiller? Remember Ben Stiller plays the person on trial in The Cable Guy? Remember that's kind of the backdrop of the movie is there's this trial going on and Ben Stiller is and I think he was mates with Judd Apatow and that's why he's in.
Oh, right.
I'm not, because you know The Cable Guy is a Judd Apatow film? Like Judd Apatow, who like he wasn't big at that time and he didn't become big until years later when he started doing 40-Year-Old Virgin and Superbad. So it wasn't like he went, Cable Guy, and then my career's on the up and up.
They should make a 60-Year-Old Virgin, a sequel to 40-Year-Old Virgin now.
Yeah, and again, they should just go, "Oh, he didn't end up having sex. That was a we made a mistake. That was the wrong script." So there's going to be now 60-year-old version with Steve Carell.
Exactly.
Cable Guy, yeah, we should do a whole Cable Guy episode because I love the Cable Guy and I never understood, and I loved it when it came out. I saw it at the movies. I saw it at the Piccadilly Cinema on O'Connell Street in Adelaide, and I was like, "That's great." And then when I got home, all the media was going bad film. And
I thought it was good too,
and this is great.
I don't know why it was a slightly more nuanced performance than Jim Carrey was allowed to give at that time. Like it was a bit of hammy.
Yeah,
I'm a Jim Carrey nut. Kind of like squeezing my face into weird shapes or whatever. But there was a bit of like genuinely kind of menacing quality to him as well, and sad, which was cool. There you go. Budget 47 million, box office 102 million. So Cable Guy did okay, and that makes me happy. It has Matthew Broderick, who you recently learned had a car accident in Ireland that killed people, and he doesn't like to talk about that anymore. And another, I've been watching HBO Max recently, and I'm also puzzled by the continuation, seemingly to infinity, of Sex and the City, which also is like 30 years old now, and they're just making a new season, I think, called And Just Like That, which is the sort of latest iteration of that. So they're all just sort of strange copies of copies of copies in Hollywood these days, and that's how everyone gets by.
When you told me that Matthew Broderick had accidentally killed somebody in a car accident in Ireland in like the 80s, the first thing that I thought was like, imagine the family history conversations in that Irish family, because like the kids, there would be kids that have grown up and it'd be like, "Oh, tell us a bit about your childhood, Mum," and she'd go, "Oh, well, I used to have a sister," and they'd go, "Oh yeah, I know something happened. What happened to your sister?" And then the mum would go, "She was killed in a car accident by Ferris Bueller in 1985. And you just go, that sounds weird Irish family history.
Yeah, that sounds like a dream you've had. Are you sure that's true? Yeah, there you go. So a bit of a dark turn, but we'll just briefly touch on it. August in 1987, or August 15, 1987. And he was driving in Ireland, like some people when they're in foreign countries, they forget what side of the road they're supposed to be on. That seems to be what happened. Went to the wrong side of the road and killed a mother and daughter. And he was driving with Jennifer Grey, of course, who everyone will remember from the 80s, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So that meant that he had to instead marry Sarah Michelle Gellar. Sorry, not Sarah Michelle Gellar. Sarah Jessica Parker. One of the three named Sarahs.
Sarah Michelle Gellar. Fuck, I haven't thought of that name for a while. After being supported by a talent agent. What was she? She was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This again is one of those people that I haven't seen for years, and it's just interesting and beautiful to see her as a slightly more aged.
Yeah,
I love her as an older lady with those nasal those flabioid folds that I love, and
you love it.
A little bit more
touch,
a little bit more of a kind of neck.
The bulbosity and say, there it is.
I love. She's kept her bulbosity as well, which I love. Like she had if she was coming up in Hollywood today, they would have snipped that bulbosity real quick. They said, "Sarah, you're not getting any vampire slaying roles. With that on the end of your face. So we're going to snip that right off." But she's kept a little bit of that cute bulbosity, and she's looking good. She's looking like a beautiful older lady. Why was I thinking of Buffy the Vampire Slayer? I know why. I was thinking of Buffy the
Sarah Michelle Gellar instead of
I was thinking of Buffy the Vampire Slayer this week because I just watched the Paul Reubens documentary. Paul Reubens was Pee Wee Herman. And so HBO has just released a 2-part Pee Wee Herman documentary, Paul Reubens documentary. And it's very, very excellent. And I wanted to recommend it to people because, it's a really fascinating story because I just knew him as this isolated man, this character, Pee Wee Herman. That was all I knew about him. Okay, Pee Wee Herman. And my cousins, the Neats, they had Pee Wee Herman's, it was called Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure, Pee Wee Herman's Amazing Bicycle, the first one, the one directed by Tim Burton.
Yeah.
And they used to watch that film religiously on beta tape. And so every time I'd go around there, we'd watch it and they would quote the film.
Wow.
And then it turns out that he was connected and worked with so many other actors that I knew of. Like he was extremely close with Phil. Phil Hartman is the co-writer of that first Pee Wee Herman film with him, and he met Phil Hartman at the Groundlings like improv troupe.
Yeah,
and he was like insanely driven, Paul Reubens, which is just kind of interesting because you see this sort of laissez-faire character, Pee Wee Herman, and you just go, oh yeah, I guess that guy probably just did that character at a show once and he got spotted by an agent and they said, do you want to make a film? And he's like, yeah, I guess. But he was like an avant-garde, Paul Reubens was like an avant-garde theatre performer for like a decade or so, just behind the scenes, working his ass off, and was like insanely driven and a really interesting guy. And so HBO, Pee Wee Herman, you gotta check out the documentary.
I just remember that.
Sorry. I should also just throw in the reason I was thinking Buffy the Vampire Slayer is because he was cast as one of the vampires in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie before it was a TV show. Yeah.
Oh, right. I didn't know that. What I did know is that he was, I'll see if I can find anything about, I remember from my childhood that he was found kind of in like a pornographic theater.
Yes, that's what everybody goes to, which is a lot of what the documentary is about, how he really didn't appear at all to be a particularly strange man, but for whatever reason, it actually doesn't go into the motives behind the people who went after him, but I mean, he was first pulled. The cops first arrested him, I think, when he was back home visiting his parents in Florida. Yeah, and he was arrested for like exposing himself in a adult movie theater, which is like, that was the point of the adult movie theaters. Like, and he ended up being fined something like $100 and having to do community service or something, which just goes to show you how much of a non-thing it was. Yeah. And then somebody accused him of having child pornography about, I don't know, 10 years later. Okay. And so the police came and took like boxes, hundreds of boxes, because he's a collector. Yeah. Took all of these boxes of vintage like gay porn that didn't even look particularly pornographic, this stuff in documentary. Yeah. And I think after they went through like hundreds of thousands of images, they found like one of somebody and they were like, oh, this one is indecent. And again, he had to pay like $50. Right. And then his like reputation and career were just in tatters, and that's what everybody remembers, or a lot of people remember about him. And you just think,
it's even sadder because
crazy that people
worked so hard, as you say, and then I've had that happen to me. You work for years to build a reputation, and then you're in an adult theater, and I was just there because Club X Club X in Melbourne CBD is an old converted cinema palace, and I'm very interested in the golden era films, and now I can't get a brief to save myself as a lawman. But
man, I haven't heard Club X for a while.
Yeah, still going amazingly. I mean, that's the most baffling thing of all. Who's still going to that kind of establishment in this day and age? We should talk about that on a different episode. But so, guys, what I'm asking is, tell me about your favorite films that you always thought every other film's getting a second go, getting a second look, getting turned into a franchise, even if it's been, years or even decades since that film was made. But, I remember loving the movie Snake Eyes with Nicolas Cage, you might say, or I remember loving the movie Rounders with Matt Damon. Why don't we make a sequel to those films? And even if, every character died at the end, Broken Arrow, you could say, well, it was a classic Cage Travolta head-to-head film, and sure, it ended a certain way, but Will Smith, River to His People, has showed us that the narrative of the original film need not be an impediment to a sequel that just proceeds as a non sequitur to the original film. I mean, who cares? You just make it up as you go along. So if you want both of those characters to be alive, if you want them to be played by different people, if you want them to be a different age, doesn't matter. Just make the film you want to see. Tell us what you think.
What's the ultimate like character death in a film that you could just ignore? Like, what are the most question. Like, what are the most? Maybe I can ask ChatGPT. I can just ask ChatGPT. What are the most famous?
The ones I'm thinking of
deaths.
The ones I'm thinking of from the kind of 90s era would be one. I mean, unfortunately, Hans Gruber, you can't bring back because Alan Rickman has passed, but I guess you could get someone else to play him. You could just say, look, all you saw was him letting go of the ledge and falling. You didn't actually, nobody actually saw him die. So you could say, you could start at that moment and then have just a trampoline at the base.
Or a mountain of building. He fell into a marshmallow factory. He fell through the roof of a marshmallow factory.
Exactly. Or, Braveheart, you could say, yeah, sure. William Wallace, you saw him getting hung, drawn and quartered and having his nuts cut off and screaming out freedom and being disemboweled. But you didn't actually see him being buried. So maybe he recovered from that and he'll just be... he'll bring Scotland to victory over the Brits in Braveheart 2 without the use of his testicles or intestines.
Alan Rickman through AI. Alan Rickman, just a new Die Hard film, just starts and you just the film starts at nighttime with the kind of no, and there's does he die at daytime or not? He dies at nighttime, doesn't he?
I think he does at nighttime. Yeah.
He does at nighttime, so the film would just open and it would just be blim, 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 and then you would sort of see him fall, and then you just watch him fall through the roof of a marshmallow factory, and then the camera would suddenly be in the factory while it was closed, and the camera would start panning in on a huge industrial kind of bin, and then his head would just pop out and he'd go and all marshmallows would fall out of his mouth and he'd go McLean, and then the film would start.
Exactly. And he'd be, because he's AI generated, he'd be weirdly dressed in the same clothes that his character wears in Love Actually for the whole film.
No, McLean, I hate marshmallows. Like him. I've got here, the first one that came up in Classic and Iconic Deaths was the first one that I thought of, which is Mufasa, the Lion King. So he's back. Just ignore that. Mufasa's back. Jack Dawson from Titanic. Jack's back. Titanic, Jack's back. Because again, you just see him. Exactly. And you could just say, oh, actually, he just
has gills.
Went down. He went down a little bit, and then he was like, actually, I'm fine. And then he just swam to a tropical island. And so when the movie starts, it's a tropical adventure. It's like Cool Runnings.
Yeah.
With Jack Dawson.
That's right.
This would be an ad.
It's a kind of madcap story of him just making friends with an uncontacted tribe. Leo DiCaprio.
Bambi's mother. That was the other one I was thinking of. Bambi's mother is back in the brand new Bambi film. called Bambi's mother. Just ignore that she died. That was a mistake we made for the DVD.
Going out of their way
the mistake
to rewrite things that don't really matter. Oh, we're making a new never-ending story, and Artax, the horse that fell into the swamp, he actually survived.
Like Atreyu left way too early. If Atreyu had stuck around, then he just would have crawled out and gone, "Hey, I was fine. I was just taking a mud bath.
Exactly. I was just having a rest." I was a bit sad because it was a swamp of sadness, but at no point was I in danger. So there you go.
We should do a top 10 most traumatic moments in children's films that wouldn't happen.
Definitely up there
today.
Fuck, I watched one recently which somebody had put on Instagram saying this really fucked me up, and it was a scene from the movie The Witches, the adaptation of the Roald Dahl, where they pull off their mask. Oh fuck me, that is
and they all become these cackling witches that turn children into. Do they kill children? Do they turn them, or they just turn them into mice? I forget what they do. That was pure Roald Dahl.
It is very dark.
Yeah. So we'll do that. We'll ask ChatGPT next week. What are the in a week's coming up? What are the most traumatic scenes? Kids these days don't know that back in the day, there was just nobody in the room going, "You can't put that in a kids' film. That's terrifying." True. That's not in the fucking Jack Black is not some sort of terrifying child-eating witch in the Minecraft movie.
That's right. Yeah, that wouldn't be okay. Can't even do sex scenes now without an intimacy coordinator, so you definitely can't give children PTSD anymore.
Beautiful. Well, John, thank you so much for that. And everybody, we can't wait to see you next week.
The podcast.